stay in this container. And I'm not going to lie, I've had this container since 1991 when I graduated nail school. Came in my kit. And if this ever breaks, I'll kind of feel like it's the end of my career. I keep them in Cavicide. So I was playing with some new bits as well. And so these were all the bits in there. This is my Tammy Taylor bit that I was just telling you guys about. They go on sale every now and then where they're $10, and then I'll buy a bulk of them because I think normally they're around $20. This one is also a Tammy Taylor pencil bit. This is a Max Estrada cuticle bit. Let's see, I can't zoom in on there. This one's a Max Estrada. I don't remember. I don't think that one's called the Carrot, but it's one of the safety bits. It's rounded on the end. And then this is the cuticle bit that I ordered from Amazon. So my go-to 3 bits are these. Okay, my efile is a Medical. Oh, that's upside down to you guys. Medical Pro. I had an, believe it or not, I had an OPI foot-powered efile for about 15 years. And for some reason, one day it just quit working. After 15 years, I think it just wanted to retire. And I called OPI, and they're like, we don't even make those anymore. And I was like, what? Like, this is my favorite. And so anyways, make long story short, I did the same thing that I did with the lights. I ordered a few of them. And I thought, okay, if for some reason these ones that are less expensive don't meet what I want and feel comfortable to me, then I will send them back. And then I will get my Koopa one that I always wanted. But this one won me over, and so this is what I'm using right now. I've been using it for, oh my goodness, about a year and a half. I like this one because it's all metal and it's weighted, so therefore it's not too light in my hand, so that way I can press on things and it evens out in the weight of your hand, so it's comfortable. Sometimes they're too light, sometimes they vibrate, sometimes they're plastic. So just find one that fits your hand, because if you're going to be using this tool a lot, you want to make sure that it's something that you can hold on to a lot. Good night, Ria. Sheena says, Amy, do you have a few naked nails there? Well, let's just say these two got to be in a class that I did yesterday. I did an acrylic fill. I was showing how to do apex and all of that. And so I have not finished them. I'm about 3 weeks grown out on my other ones, so I thought I was just going to continue to do lives until all my nails are done. Okay, so first things first. I use makeup wedges, and the reason why is they're completely lint-free. They don't cost that much more than cotton balls when you use one wedge throughout your whole surface, and it's great. These are my containers. So this is 100% acetone. It's not just what they call polish remover. It doesn't have any fragrance. It doesn't have any moisturizers or anything like that in there. Sue says, when I started in the nail business, we used actual dental drills in the pulley system. Yes, they're gigantic on our tables, and we used to get the hair caught in them all the time. We've come a long way in 30 years. Yes, Sue, we have. Thank goodness as well. I actually took, so my efile class that I took was actually in orthodontics. It wasn't even in the nail industry. Okay, so I take acetone and I put it on my cotton ball. Let's do this now. And so I clean all the way up to the knuckle and then all the way around. And the reason why I do that is because I want to make sure I temporarily dehydrate all the oil off of there. And then this way, later on when I'm touching and moving my finger around there, I know for a fact that I'm not going to be putting added oil all over that now. And you'll see that it turns a little bit chalky white. And that's just a temporarily removing of any of the oil that's on the top. And if I look back at my wedge and I see that there's any discoloration on there, then I know that they didn't clean their hands well enough in the bathroom. So I hand them a cute little brush and I have them go rewash, and then they're always a little bit more aware next time they go to sit at my table. My clients have clean hands. So since I'm having drinks and doing this, I'll tell you guys a little story. I don't think I've ever talked about this on any of my lives. So you know how sometimes people come in and they have stuff underneath their nails and you don't really want to ask what it is. You want them to wash, but you don't want to assume anything. And honestly, it would gross us out if we kind of knew anything that their hands touched. And so I have come up with a theory that everything is nacho cheese because nacho cheese covers anything that's yellow, green, brown, or red, which are any of the things that kind of gross me out. And so I just say, oh, you have some nacho cheese underneath your nails if you want to go wash. And they usually tell me, I haven't had any nacho cheese. And then they look at me like, okay, I'll go wash. So it's always funny. Do you use acetone on the wedge and then alcohol during the same treatment? Yeah, I see all those funny faces. Yes, I use acetone at the beginning, and then at the end, when I remove the tacky layer, I'll use the same wedge because the acetone kind of evaporates out of it, and I'll put it in the alcohol and continue to use it. So that's where you can save the money, is it might cost a little bit more, but I can use this makeup wedge for the whole service. Okay, so after it's clean, then I come in and I use this on the cuticle, which if I can get in here close enough, you guys can see that my nails have grown out about 3.5 weeks. You can see right here where the cuticle's up on the nail, and then you can see where I definitely have some room that I can clean up my own cuticles because I don't mess with them in between fills. I just leave them be. So when you're doing your own, make sure you're going in that right direction. If I have this in the right one. When I put my efile back, I put it in upside down. It's a good thing I don't drink when I do clients. Huh? All right. So I come in and it's going to be like really small circular motions that I'm doing. And I'm going in one direction. So I'm not hitting the cuticle in both directions, just one direction. And I always start up on one side. And then you can see that this pushes the cuticle, takes off the dead skin, and at the same time, it's lightly buffing the nail. This is not going to create any ring of fire, nothing. Like I said, in my workshops, I do this on an apple, and you can see where you don't break the skin of an apple even. So I have a habit of going around it 2 times, and then I come in and I'll just etch any of that free edge that's out there. And then I don't ever touch that, not free edge, I don't ever touch that new nail again. It's already prepped and ready to go. You get a really clean, nice look with this one bit. I'll do this one first. So start on one side. Like I said, it's really small, circular motions. And this feels so good. My clients love this. And I'll show you, like there's absolutely no heat. I can hold it under the skin. I'm pushing really hard. And it doesn't hurt at all. Like I would honestly like this over my whole body. So just to show you. All my stuff's in the sanitizer. I'm going to use this little brush. Okay, so that's the cuticle prep. If you have, like you can see, like these little hangnails and stuff like that, then you can go through with your clippers and you can clip that off. In the state where I'm at, we're not allowed to cut cuticles, and so this is the best that we can go. Okay, so to answer some questions really fast, do you take off regular polish with sponges? Yes, I do. The reason why is I can actually, usually like if I'm removing a red or a black, it's going to take me a few cotton balls, and I can use my one sponge to be able to do that. Do you always use US products or do you use some products from other countries? I use them all. I don't care where they're from. I use them all because I really do feel some products are just better than others, and some of them you cannot get in the United States, and depends if they're on sale. And I try them all. And for gel removal too. For gel, and maybe for gel removal too. I'm guessing that you're talking about the cotton balls and or my makeup wedge. Because for gel removal, I do everything with my efile. So when I do gel polish, when they come to me and they have gel polish on, I either do 2 coats of base coat, and that way when they come back in for their gel polish, I can use my efile and I can file all the way down to where I can see that first clear color of the base coat. And therefore, then from there, I can buff off the rest of that. or I do the genre technique, which I'll just show you guys that one today. Instead of an acrylic fill, I'll show you guys the genre. And with that, I can use my efile as well. So the only time that I soak anybody off if they walk into my salon and they have gel polish on and I don't know what's underneath it. And then I will take the time to soak them off and then redo that. But that's it. And because most of my clients have been with me for a while, so I can't take any new people. And so with that being said, all of my appointments are fills. I don't ever have to do new sets or new people anymore. No, I meant using the file for gel polish. Yeah, so this is what I use for gel polish removal, Shayna. I like that some of them have safety bits and stuff like that. This is what I'm used to. And because I don't go all the way around, like I don't e-file my nails this way, I e-file them this way. And therefore, I will leave a ring of color all the way around. So I've never touched their skin or never touched that natural nail again. So I'll just show you how to do it. Have I ever used CPJ? No, I haven't, and I want to, and I have some coming actually. I added it to my cart in an order, and I just haven't hit the order button yet, but I've heard a lot about it, a lot of great things about it. So would you use an efile on natural nails? I don't. I would use the cuticle bit, but the rest of the way on the natural nail, I would use a hand file because you don't, unless you are comfortable with your bit on the natural nail and use it at a very low speed and use maybe the more of the buffing sanding bands would be fine. But time wise, you're going to end up using a hand file on a natural nail anyways to do shaping. So why not just go straight to the hand file and save yourself some time and some money? All right. So when I use this coarse bit, I'm about, I don't know what the RPMs would be, but let's just say if my, here, I'll show you. If this was like an odometer. So when I turned it to here, that was my cuticle bit. Turning it to here is about what I use for taking off anything else. And then at the end, if I use my pencil bit, I'm back down into this area again, which if I was doing a natural nail, that's honestly where I would be as well. So sometimes when people are like, oh, you have to use our e-file because it's, 36,000 RPMs or whatever it is. You know what? I never use that strength. So I don't know why I would need one that high. Doris, I think I just answered your question when I showed you that part, so I might be a little bit behind. Okay, so I have gel polish on. This is an additive encapsulated in base gel coat, and on this nail I have chameleon over a black gel polish, and then all of my nails are over the genre technique. So the genre is gel polish, and I sprinkle in acrylic powder and then encapsulate that with another clear base coat. And then that's how I do all the nails that I do in my salon. So I create kind of a system here. I go up the center and kind of break that seal. And then I go down one side and down the other. Now forgive, I'm doing this on myself, so it's a little bit different. So I'm using my file sideways, which actually makes it where you press less. You can press hard, but it's less, it's not going through the nail as much. So you can see my thickness. I'm going to taper that in just a little bit because I'm going to rebuild that back up. So here's with gel polish and genre, and here's my prep. And you can see if you find the right course for gel polish, this can go through it really easily. But I'm going to a coating that I'm not touching the natural nail. And so therefore, I'm not creating any damage. And taper down my end. So there's my C-curve. That's how much I've taken out. Now, we talk a lot about apex, and if you saw the live that I did last night, you would know my theory on apex. For years, it was just called an arch. I think what has happened is it started out as, and in the industry, we were always taught with acrylic to do a 3-ball method. And then over the years, gel polish is coming in and you're not doing, or not gel polish, hard gel's coming in and you don't tend to do hard gel with the 3-ball method. And so even with acrylic, it started changing where you were using 1 ball. and then naturally it wasn't building in that arch, or what is now everybody calls an apex. And so I still do what I guess would call similar to the 8-ball method, or 8-ball, Jesus. Here, let me have another drink. I still do similar to the 3-ball method. Heck, right now, if I did acrylics, it might be 8 balls. Okay, so that you got to divide. So for the length of my nails, you want to divide that into 3. So here's one section, 2 sections, and the third section. And so you want your apex to be in that 1/3 of the nail. So you want your apex, the highest part of your nail, to be in that 1/3. Okay. So my nails have grown out. So truthfully, before I filed, my highest point was about here. And the reason why is I've grown out that far, so therefore my apex has moved. And if you don't rebalance that arch or that apex, then you're going to end up with a thicker nail, and you're going to end up with it heavier here than at the cuticle, which sometimes can create some lifting issues. So anyways, so my technique is I always file up the center, I avoid this area, and then I come down and I taper down my sides, which I always say it makes for the ugliest stick figure girl. And then it would be the same thing on this one. I file up the side, I come around this way, and then I file down the sides and then create my shaping. So being that my nails are pretty far grown out, let me get some better lighting on here. Hold on, guys. There, now you can see. So being that my nails are pretty grown out, I would actually skip this one. I use this if I really have to go higher up onto the nail. I would skip it and then just hand file the rest away, because you're going to have to hand file anyways to get your shaping and stuff. So, but just to show you this one, I will. So I use this on a slow speed. And I kind of use it as an angle as well. If you go straight on like this, you're going to create a ring of fire. And I'm a believer in saving the natural nail, so I don't want to do that. And I come in it sideways and take off the color. And once again, I'm not touching the natural nail in any way. I actually have a little bit of a buckle on this one. There, I took my pencil off. So you guys can see that buckle right there. So anytime you see a buckle, file them off, because that is going to eventually lift up on the side, or by the time it makes it to the end, it's going to create a pretty big break. And so maybe that was a wine night and I hit that nail. I'm not quite sure. Okay. So that's how to use those 3 bits. And then in the state of Wyoming, we can only use disposable nail files. I like this one. And I like that they're individually packaged, because then if you feel that your competition are some walk-in salons that you know are reusing files and they're not supposed to be, then you can prove that you opened this up for each client and then you hand it to them at the end. And so there's a trust factor that my clients trust that I'm giving them the best sanitation. Doris, what is a buckle? A buckle is somewhere along the way. Can you see this air pocket underneath? Somewhere along the way. Now I can tell you I just shortened my nails and this was the longest that they've been in a long time. I have hit the end of it, and right in the middle of where my free edge to here, I've created a buckle, because right in the center point where your apex is, that is where the pressure would be. That's why they have you build up more into that area. I can say I've been about 3.5 weeks, almost 4 weeks, and my nails were out farther than this, and I was hitting them a lot, and so I did have to shorten them, and so I created a buckle. So it's just an air pocket. Okay, so the same way that I showed you with my stick figure, I'm going to take the smooth part, which this is a 180, so it's similar to what a buffer would be, and I go straight up the center, and then I bring it down and around. And then blend in your sides. Make sure that there's not going to be any lifted areas on their side. And then do the same thing, one direction, bring it over to the other side, and then blend that down. Now, with that buckle, oops, sorry, I was right out of the camera. What was the name of this? So this one's a coarse bit. This one, most companies call it a pencil bit. And then this one would be called the cuticle bit, but in the kit that I get it at, it's not the cuticle bit. Sheena says, Amy, I used your gender application on a client. Gender. I'm assuming the genre application on a client. That's very weak. Then natural nails, but the nails all popped off. But I think the acrylic powder I used was not the best. Do you think it's worth, hold on, it made me add to it. Do you think it's worth trying again with her if I did a C&D acrylic powder to use? What gel polish should you use with it? Because it's not so much the acrylic powder that I find it's a strength. I find that it's the gel polish. And is the file that you use 180 on both sides? No. So this is a 100 by 180. And the side that I'm using is the 180 side. If I was doing prep without my efile, I'd be using my 100 side to take down all the bulk that I used my efile for. But being that I'm already close to my natural nail and what I'm using files like butter, I'm just using the 100 side. Use a protein. I do use a protein bonder, Doris, but I still created a buckle. I don't get these a whole lot, but I see them occasionally on clients, and I know what they're from. They're from hitting the end when they're too long. I use pink shellac, which gives good results usually as a thinner. Okay, so are you putting the acrylic powder into the pink shellac, or are you putting it into the base coat of the shellac? And then we'll troubleshoot here in a moment. So I'm going to continue filing this. So on these buckles, you need to file these buckles out. I could use my e-file, but I'm going to go down to my natural nail, so therefore I don't want to because I don't want to overdo it. So I'm just going to use my hand file. See how immediately it opens up that buckle? Because that's an air pocket. And then I'm going to file that buckle off. This is where sometimes we just want to, like, oh, I know that buckle probably won't create a problem for, another month, so I'll just leave it on there and skip it and do a cover pink or something. No, your job as a nail tech is to take care of that client completely. It doesn't take that long if you have the right tools to go in and prep that nail correctly and get rid of that buckle and then start all over again. Okay, so I've prepped that nail. You can see that I've removed a lot of the arch that was already in there, so I'm going to need to recreate that. I wear my nails shorter, so I like a more natural look, so I don't do a really high apex or anything. There's no lifting on the sides. Now, when it comes to shaping, your file, know how to use your file. So, okay, so here's a tip. So if you're doing a rounded nail, you're going to hold your file at this angle. If you're going to do a square nail, you're going to hold your file here, an inverted square, so these are the different ways you can file. If you're going to do like a stiletto and you're using square tips or, whatnot, or you sculpted it out differently, then use a pencil and then put it to your free edge, because that's where you start all your shaping is from that free edge. And then you can take scissors, clip that off, and then file that in. In this case, I'll show you. So these are Tammy Taylor pre-edge tips, just in case you're wondering. So if you were to take your file and you want to round it now, and you go like this direction with it, and you just continue to file. You're going to make that nail a rounded nail, even on both sides. So it's an easy, use them in their use. So don't go back and forth and try to chase the shape. If you're doing square, then hold the file on bluntly. Go square. And if they want rounded edges, then bevel the edges by using your file to do it like that. So you'll see that I have a square tip, but I have a little bit of a rounded edge. And then if they want to really square, you go almost, I don't know what you want to call that. You go over more. And then you can get a super square tip, and then your edges will be sharper as well. So that's how you can do it with shapings. So on the natural now it's the same way. So on the sides we want to create this like a little bit of a rounded beveling. So we're going to start out at the free edge and under that nail, and we're going to come up and we're going to roll our file over to kind of bevel those sides or round them, however you would make it sound. Same thing, pull it over. And you know, when you come down the side, you want to make sure that your nail is even with the file. If it's like this, if they want that shape, you can do that. But if not, then you don't have your C curve built down enough. And if your nail ends up, well, I can't even do it, the opposite, then what you need to do is file that up so that you have a straight line. So therefore, you get your strength in there. Okay, so start at the free edge in there and bevel your file around. And then the same thing for the free edge. So I like mine squared with my sides rounded a little bit. So I'm going to square it, and then I'm going to rock it down and bring it back up, and that will round my sides just a little bit. All right, so this one I'm going to show you if I did not use the pencil tip and I was going to do it by hand. My little finger, this is going to be a fun one. I always go up the center and bring it down and around. Now you can see where I'm filing off that gel polish, so you can tell that I'm not touching that natural, that new free edge, or gosh, why do I keep calling that too much wine? I'm not touching that new growth anymore. It's only been filed on with that very light cuticle efile that I had in the beginning. Bevel up my sides. File in my free edge. Get off all the dust. So then that is your filing. So in my case, I have a 3-part efile and then a 1-part hand file. So my entire prep is a 4-file prep. All right. To clean these, you get all of the excess powder off of them. Sometimes if you're removing nail polish, but it's over acrylic or something like that, so you can use your efile. It gets kind of stuck in there. Soak that in acetone, just the tip so it doesn't rust out for just a couple minutes, and then brush that off, and then run that under hot soapy water, and then throw it into your Cavicide or your cleaner. And then I keep mine. I keep mine in there all the time, so my clients see me pull that out of the sanitation. They know that it's clean. Once again, it's that building that trust with your client. All right, let's read some questions here. So Sheena, you're doing it in the base coat. I wonder if the base coat's thick enough. There's different thicknesses in the base coat. Let's see if we can do a test here. Okay, so I have captions, conversion base coat. Let's see, it's almost gone. I don't know if can you see how thick that is? Here, I'm going to turn my camera around so you guys can see this too. Oh. Well, apparently my camera did not like that. Sorry about that. Get some light down in here. Okay. It's super thick. See how long it's taken to get a bead to come off of there? That for the genre technique, that is a thickness that you're going to want to do. Like here's another base coat. D&D is my favorite. I love this product. To see how thick that stuff is. Some of the gel polish base coats are really thin, so it might be that it's just too thin. Therefore, you can still use it for that technique, but you might need to do 2 coats of it instead of 1. Okay. What monomer do you use? Well, if I'm doing acrylics, I play around with different acrylics. And One of my acrylics that I'm using right now is C&D, and I'm using retention. The reason why I like retention versus the others, so like Solar Nails, their first one that came out, and then they had Radical, and those are a really slow setting monomer. Retention's a little bit faster, and the Moxie is like speed fast. And so if I'm doing reverse like pink and whites, I want one that I can spend my time working with, and retention is my favorite one for that. I love so many products. I love Young Nails. I I can't say enough about all of them. I actually kind of get bored, and then I go through and try a new one. But I put the acrylic into the first base coat. I've noticed since then I apply one base coat and then the second. So yeah, Sheena, I'm kind of wondering if maybe that base coat's just really thin and it's requiring you to do more than one coat. And Harmony base coat's a little bit thicker, but the D&D and the Young Nails is thicker than both of those. And you're welcome. Have you used Cuccio? I have not, Wanda. However, Anita Hug, oh, I can't think of her married name. Anita Hug is the CEO, I believe. She's a big wig with Cuccio. She's coming live with me on TikTok in a week. Maybe it's 2 weeks. And she's going to be advertising and doing some giveaways for Cuccio. I've not used it yet, but we've already talked about getting some of those products. Okay. In my workshops, I talk a lot about why to use this type of a container for your pH bond and all of that. And the reason why is make sure the lid is a normal lid that you work with. So like a Bond-Aid by OPI has a very short lid, and I was spilling it all the time. And so I had to find one that had a normal polished lid for me. And then I wanted one that wasn't going to require another cotton ball or another makeup wedge to go through and clean again. So after I have prepped, efiled those nails, I take my makeup wedge with 100% acetone again, and I get off any, excuse me, this is not acetone, this is 91% rubbing alcohol is what I meant to say. Speaking of which, I should probably drink more of my alcohol since I said I was going to do this with wine. Okay, and the reason why I do that is I want to make sure that every bit of the powder is off of there so that my prep is completely good. Okay, that's also going to temporarily remove any of the oils that are on there. And then I will come in with my pH bond, which is another temporary dehydrator. You guys are laughing at me, huh? You haven't seen any. Oh, you haven't had any wine yet, Jennifer? Well, I started this 2 hours ago and I still have half a glass of wine. I'm trying to become a wino. It's not working if you don't actually drink it. Okay, so pH bond is a temporary dehydrator. And with pH bond, it's made to go in and truly over the entire nail. You can touch the skin with this, it's okay. Temporarily dehydrate the nail. There's lots of companies that have this, like C&D, it's called, Scrub Fresh, and then Tammy Taylor, it's Clean It, and all of that. So its purpose is to go in and remove any bacteria. You've already removed all the dust off of there. You allow this coat to completely dry and go back to that etched look. So sometimes we work with our product too fast. We do this and then we go directly into the next step. Well, usually pH bonders, some of them have a little bit of acetone in it, and if you put your product on directly over that, you're going to end up making lifting already just because you're using the right products, you're just not using them correctly. Sheena, you're laughing with me, not at me. It's like I'm on my second. Oh, well, Doris, cheers to you. Yeah, so now you guys can really see where that buckle was. So I filed that all the way down to the natural nail, so I'll get that fixed. So I'm going to show you guys an acrylic fill, and I'm going to show you the genre fill. And then I'll probably just end at that point, because if I go into gel polish and everything else, then that's going to be a whole other 2 hours. All right, so hold on and let me prep, because key is keeping a very clean workstation. With acrylic on these napkins, I use 2 because I want to make sure that it absorbs all the acrylic out of my brush. Once again, my monomers are in pumps so that there's no evaporation, and then with that, there's no contamination. Monomer pumps have this mushroom at the top, so it doesn't fly out all over the place. I like to, this is my favorite brush. I like to use the flat, oval. This is a size number 8. This one's a Tammy Taylor, but all companies tend to have one. And we're going to use C&D. All right, so this is C&D blush pink sheer. So first of all, let's troubleshoot. So people always say, what's the best acrylic? Well, the true question is what's the best acrylic for your technique and your speed? There's lots of different acrylics, but really the difference between them is how many colors they come with and stuff. But it's if it's self-leveling or if it's not self-leveling. If it's self-leveling, you can put a bead onto you and you can watch it kind of settle around, and then you can just control it up on the sides and stuff. And those ones are very good for like a thin overlay and stuff. If it's not self-leveling, then those are really good about for longer nails that you want to be able to move that product where you want. Like if you're forming out a stiletto, you want to be able to work with that to not move. And so therefore, and you want to be able to pat it into place and create the design that you're doing. And so therefore, depending what you're doing, you might want to choose the acrylic that's best for you for that. All right, so with C&D, okay. So sometimes people are using Dappen dishes for their liquid, and only fill your Dappen dish with enough liquid to go about halfway up the brush. Because if you're constantly dipping your brush in and you're going this high onto your brush, you are putting monomer way up into your bristles, and eventually you're going to get yellowing on the nail because the monomer that's trapped is going to discolor. And when you go to use it again, when it comes down onto your bristles, it yellows. And to test to make sure that your brush is still good, then you'll get monomer on your brush. You're going to put it on your paper towel and you're going to clean that off. And if you get yellow on your paper towel, then your brush is bad and it's contaminated, and that would be a reason why you have yellowing on your nails and possibly some lifting. So make sure that you're using your brush clean and good. All right, so to get the perfect bead for C&D, now you can remember your ratio will be a little bit different with each one depending what they are. So you get your liquid on there, on your brush. Some people will dip into their powder and they go like circular or go straight down and then come up. But the problem with that is now you have too much powder to work with less liquid, because there's still monomer in your brush and now it's going to absorb all of that. So it's not going to give you time to play. Plus, when you put it on the nail and you pull your bristles out, do you see how it's rocking that acrylic back? So if you put it on the nail where you want it, closer to the cuticle, and then you pull your bristles out, you're pulling it away from the cuticle. Then you spend all your time trying to push it back into the cuticle, which can create lifting. So don't do that. If it's too wet, with this brush, I just don't know that I can get it too wet. You put it on, see this one's a self-leveling, you can watch it kind of smooth out. Well, that's not a good one. And I use that really wet. So anyways, if it's too wet, you can tell because you can't hardly keep it on your brush. Usually you drop it in your powder and then it creates a big old bead of acrylic in your powder. So, and then if it's too dry, you've held it in the powder too long, sometimes you're talking to your client, you've done it a few times, or you're trying to get a bigger bead, but it never really, let's see if I can get that in focus, it never really absorbs all that powder. So if I turned that around and put that, excuse me, on the nail, then that powder that's not been absorbed by the monomer that powder is going to create some air pockets, and then you're going to have some problems with that. What do I have my monomer in? So this is a Menda glass container. Okay. Also, if you work with it too dry, you don't have enough time to really pat it around and get it where you want it to be. So to get the right ratio for your liquid, prime your brush. That means that you have enough liquid in your brush. It's not dropping off. It's not dipping off or anything like that. Okay, dipping off. You honestly want to like put it in there and then turn it around. And immediately when you turn it around, you're going to see that all the powder is absorbed. And then it's going to give me time to put it onto the nail. You allow it to set for about 3 seconds or so. You can see how it kind of glosses over. See the reflection of my light? Allow the product to settle out, and then you have a lot less filing to do. Then you can pat it to where you want it. Bring in your sides. I don't ever run my brush around the cuticle line because I'll show you guys in a minute where I allow it to settle in where it needs to go. And then you allow that to dry. So you can see the smooth finish that it has. Therefore, I can just run the fine side of a file to finish file that, and it's done. I don't have to go in and continue to shape. All right. Back to placement. Excuse me, back to placement. So when I place my acrylic bead on, I'm going to place it, if you look at the top of my bristles, if I get in the camera, I'm going to place it about right here. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow it to kind of, I always want to say ooze. I know, I'm so sorry that I say that, but it's going to allow it to ooze towards the cuticle a little bit down the sides. I'll be able to pat it down the sides a little bit, and then I'll be able to drag it up my sides and then cover that nail. What time is it? It is 6:25 here, and I will not be on at midnight. I might be in bed by midnight. Okay, so I'm going to get my proper ratio. It's completely absorbed. There's no excess powder. I'm going to apply it onto my nail. You allow it to set just a little bit. It's slowly self-leveling. So then I can pat it to where I want it to go. I mean lightly pat it. This is self-leveling, so I don't have to really push on it. And you always bring it side to side. Use the well of your brush, so not the tip of your brush, to drag it down, and then bring it down your sides. Of course, I have the habit of like dabbing my paper towel in between each one. I don't know why I do that. I think it's just a habit. Really run the sides in, not up and down this way when you blend in your sides because you're going to take off too much product. You're just going to use the very tip of it to go in and make sure that's all the way down from side to side. And then you just allow it to set. So the self-leveling side of this means that it's going to level out and give me a very smooth finish if my ratio's been done right. Then you can tell with the light, I've been able to make it all the way up next to the cuticle, and it's smooth. There's not a break in that. And then the other thing that happens too is that sometimes we put a product on and we're using maybe a slow setting product. And then by the time we get all 10 of them done and we go back to file, it's not completely set yet. And therefore you break the bond that it's made to your nail and you're already creating yourself some lifting. So really wait for these to completely dry. And I'll show you as we get closer so you can see that it's starting to turn a matte finish. And it will get to where it's even more dull than that. And then you can get where you can tap on it and you can hear if it's set up or not. Do not file on it unless it's completely set up. Oh, I'm going to leave this out. Okay, so that is an acrylic fill. And you can tell if you're using your ratios right. So I did what? 5 beads. And it's not that wet. If this is saturated, you're using too big of a brush and you're wasting a lot of liquid, or you're just not getting your ratios right and you're having to constantly wipe off your liquid. And so keep an eye on your paper towels. If you're noticing that they're really, really wet, then your ratio is off, or you need to get a smaller brush. Sometimes we try to use those bigger brushes and it just ends up wasting more product than not. Okay, genre technique. So, okay, let me back up. So I use retention. Retention does not use a primer, okay? So you use your alcohol to clean the nail, you use your pH bond, and then you can go straight into the product. Some of them require a primer. When you put a primer on, you will do a dot of it on the natural nail and let that go around and touch everywhere on the natural nail without overexposing it onto the skin. And so I did not use a primer on this intentionally just because retention doesn't, I don't need that primer. Okay, so the genre technique is using a base gel coat and an acrylic powder. So just recently, I was doing a patent on these, and I got it all the way through, got it where it's accepted, and then I couldn't afford it. So When it came down to it, I talked with some of my specialist friends in the industry, and I found out that having my own product line, if I'm going to continue to be innovative on it and make a, change every few years, then that would be great. However, I'm not. It's just a technique. And so, truthfully, any company that has acrylic powder and gel polish can create this package. So, since I've been doing this technique, dipping systems have come out, and dipping systems more done in a so all gel polish is a resin, but a different consistency with different solvents in them. And so a resin in its purest form is glue, and then which is what a lot of the dipping powders are done in, is in a glue resin. However, I did not like the smell of that, and I went back to this system, which is gel polish based on acrylic powder. I sculpt with this. I can do it over tips. This is the system that I use in my salon. So with the caption, you can use Slick Pour, so that way you're using the same company. D&D does not have their own gel polish, and I've tried this with shellac, and shellac's more rubbery, and so I needed a harder, firmer base coat, and so I played around, and D&D became my favorite. So you're not going forward with the plans for the genre technique with Ian. I'm assuming Young Nails. So Young Nails came out with a video a few months ago where they showed that you can do this. They don't have a kit for it yet, but I can see where the industry is going to the system that I've been using, which I named it the genre technique. So, with that being said, just to take a quick break, another drink of wine, I'm going to tell you guys a funny story about how I came up with the name. In fact, I'll turn the camera around. Yeah, so see how I get like red blotchiness? Yeah, I'm not pretty when I drink. Okay, so a few months ago, the patent company called and they said, we can't just call this a sprinkle technique. You need to have a name for your system for the paperwork. And I was like, all right. And so I got with my sisters. It was the eclipse that was going on, so it was in August, and we were all together and having fun. And I said, hey, I need to come up with a name, and I wanted to collaborate with my sisters and have this name. And so we were like, we should call it so it's gel and acrylic mixed together. So how many times have people said, oh, we should call it like gelic or gelac or something? And gelac was kind of already in the industry, but I was like, I kind of like gelic, like angelic, and it's easy and there's no odor, and they would call it organic. And so I was like, yeah, let's do that. So I wrote down different ways of spelling it, and then I Googled it. And apparently anything with gel and lick is a sexual lubrication. And the name's already taken, and it's not in the nail industry. So I decided that I was not going to use that name. I was going to go ahead and use something else. And so we laughed about it. It was a great family fun thing. And so anyways, I came back home. I was doing my daughter's fingernails, and she had my phone, and she was listening to Amazon Music. And she's like, so what does Jenner mean? And all I could think of was like Kate Jenner, like, ugh. And so, anyways, by the time it came down to it, she meant the word genre. And I said, oh, it's all the music, but it's like different subtitles to music, but it's all music. So, like, there's country, there's bluegrass, there's rock and roll. And I said, but it's all still music, it's just different genres. And then the light bulb kicked off, and I was like, whoa, I'm using all different mediums in the nail industry. I'm using gel polish, and I'm using acrylic, and so I wonder if anything with genre ties into that. So I Googled what genre was, and to my delight, it was not a sexual anything. Genre means art, a form of art, whether it's in music or English lit or whatever. It's a form of art using different medium and to create it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. And so I looked, and there wasn't anything in the nail industry. There in New York, there was a band called Genre that was a rock and roll that it was from a few years ago. And so I submitted the name Genre, and that's how I came up with genre technique. So it's a form of art using a lot of different mediums to be able to get there. It's still pretty when you're drinking. Well, I can say my wine glass, I started with how they say professionally, so I've drank this much, and I'm a lightweight, so I can see my cheeks are a little bit pink. So when I go out on the town, I wear necklaces and high neck stuff because it's always embarrassing when you turn red. All right, so I'm going to turn this back around. This nail is hard, so I know that I can file on that, but I'm going to do the genre on this one first, and then I'll finish filing them together. All right. Okay, so this already has pH bond on it. And just because I've been touching it and not paying attention, I'm going to rub it with alcohol again and re-pH bond it so that I don't end up with any issues. With gel polish, you don't need to use a primer. I actually did a workshop where I used genre technique on a piece of glass, and I used hard gel, and I used the Young Nail system, and then I used my system. I actually started it on my glass. Here, I'm going to show you something really fast. I don't know if you can see this. See this right here? I started it here on my glass, and then I take nippers and I try to chip it off, and it chipped my glass. It bonded to my glass. I chip it out. I had to repair my glass with using gel. So the second time I did it for the workshop, I did it on a scrap piece of glass, and it works really well. It shows you that you can use the genre technique even without buffing the nail at all. And I'm going to be practicing a little bit more with that to see if I can truly get a good adhesion without any etching at all. Just making sure that the nail is clean. Okay, so once again, like what we showed you earlier, this base gel is a lot thicker. And then years ago, I used to try out the Duo forms, and YS Nails was the company that has them. And it's funny because these Duo forms are popular again, and I have 2 sets of them. But since then, I've used these into scoops for my acrylic. And then I'm going to pull my light over if I don't break it. In thin coats, and anytime you apply a gel polish, you want to put your first daub, when you daub onto the nail, about right here, and get the bulk of it off of your brush so it doesn't pool into the cuticle. And then you kind of, they used to call this pillowing. You kind of, I don't know, push it towards the cuticle and watch your bristles be able to form out with your nail, and then drag that down. And then use the side of the bristles of your brush to go around and drag that down without touching the cuticle in any way. If you leave this on the nail for a while and you see that it moves around at all and floods that cuticle or down the side, then you're using it too thick. And then you can see what a smooth finish it leaves onto that nail. At this point, while it's still wet, I take my acrylic powder. And remember, I cleaned all the way up to this knuckle. So anything that's going to be touching and falling back into my powder, I feel that it's clean, it's sanitized. And I've used these all the way down to the bottom, and I've never had, extra weird particles in it or anything like that. So I know that it's clean. Sprinkle on your acrylic powder, make sure it's all the way down on the sides. Tap off the excess. You'll see that it goes matte finish. And because I filed, remember when I filed earlier, I filed not the product all the way down, so it naturally puts my apex where it needs to be. That's one of the things that I absolutely love about this process. If I wait for a minute, that gel polish is going to absorb all of that powder. I don't wait to see that happen. I do all 5, and then I stick them in the light for 1 minute to cure it completely. Because like I said earlier, I cure everybody 1 minute so that they're, while I'm doing the other hand, that hand is staying in the light and not getting naughty. And it takes me about 1 minute to do this hand and apply the acrylic to it, and then I can put that into the light, and therefore the hands are always on the table and always in the light. My D&D. So it depends where it's on sale. I always check Cal Nail Supply, which is like California Nail Supply. So it's calnailsupply.com, beyondpolish.com. Amazon has it. Usually Amazon's about double of what you would get directly from the wholesalers. And so when you order your D&D, like if I ordered this base, I get a top with it. and oh, they're around $6.75 for both. So that makes these like $3 each. The colors, when I get the colors, they come with a matching color. And I do everything in gel polish. So I take the matching color and I put a $5 sticker on it and I put it on my retail area. And then if somebody needs a door prize or there's a cute little girl in here, I give them that polish because by the time I break that down, if it costs me $6.75, that means that this still cost me $3 and something, and I sell that for $5. It pretty much makes this like $1, and that's one of the reasons why I like D&D. Now, however, I just picked up this caption for $6 as well. It didn't come with the top, but the price of this was still a lot less than some of the others, and it's the half or 3/4 ounce size. This one's a ½ ounce. They look about the same, but you actually get more in this one than you do this one. So when you come down to talking about cost, this one's going to be better for your dollar. However, I really like this one too. Remember, I'm an independent consultant, so I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings on products or anything because I really like all of them. I mean, obviously, I'm investing in them as well. When it comes down to saving money, though, I have it narrowed down to the ones that save money. All right, so that sat in the light for 1 minute. On the genre, you remove the excess powder with a brush, and then you come back with your base coat and encapsulate that. So once again, your first dab will be here. See where the gloss is? And then work your bristles out and then pillow it up to the cuticle and bring it down. Cap over the free edge. And if you allow that to set a moment, you can see like where the light hitting it, it creates a flawless smooth finish. So any gel polish, sometimes we work with it too fast. We put it on the nails and then we hurry up and put it in the light. Well, it didn't have time to settle out or ooze. And so therefore, if you let your product do its job and you wait just a moment, you can tell it's not flooding the cuticle, it's not going the sidewell. It's that, so the ratio of this would be correct. And then once it's settled out, then you can set in the light. And then once again, I do that for 1 minute. And I hit the wrong button, but D&D is $12 for the duo here. Still a good price though. Want to try it out? Yeah. So is that through like Cal Nail Supply or Beyond Polish? Because I think Beyond Polish ships internationally. I think Cal Nail Supply, I don't know. But you guys know what? If you ever need anything and I know that I can get it, then call me and I'll ship it to you. Because likewise, I have some connections in the UK that has shipped me stuff from there that it can save money in shipping as well. $12 is still, it's one that would be in pounds. So I agree, it's still a good price, but I do know where you can get that for about half that cost. Doris says you can use the Young Nails conversion over regular nail polish. Yeah, and actually that's where conversion came out for, is to go over regular nail polish to turn it into a gel polish. And so this has multiple uses. But truthfully, you can do that with any thicker base and top coat system. And Sheena, you're so welcome. Sheena, you have joined me for so many of these, and I appreciate I just appreciate you. You're always positive. You ask me good questions, and I like the networking with you. All right, so I'm gonna assume that was a minute because I hit the 2-minute button because I've had some wine. Okay, so you can see that I have a smooth finish. So this one is ready to go into gel polish and then go into your top coat, your nail art, and all that kind of stuff. But I need to finish file this one, and this has a tacky layer. So I'm going to remove the tacky layer with that same makeup wedge. And I don't want to use acetone because gel polish will rub down or will break down the acetone will break down the gel polish. So this is alcohol. Remove that tacky layer. And then I'm going to finish file this one. But once again, so I don't contaminate any of my stuff on my table, I put everything away. Okay, so I finish file with a hand file. The reason why is I have a very smooth finish on this. There's no reason that I have to pull out my efile again and go across this at all. All I have to do is shape my nail up where I want. I do not refile and shape up around the cuticle because it doesn't need it. It's prepped right. My cuticle's already pushed back. My acrylic has settled down. It's already tapered down into that cuticle area. It's smooth and it's going to grow out smooth. And so your purpose of finish filing is to smooth that nail. Well, when you use your product and you take your time to use the right product, there's not much finish filing to have to be done. So I just make sure that it's not, like, use your file, make sure it's not on the skin. And then in one direction, just kind of make sure that you can pull it in. If you go back and forth too many times, you don't have a very thick layer of acrylic on the sides anyways. If you go back too many times, you're going to make that so thin that it's going to break. Okay, so here's that same filing technique. You always get into the same thing. So for me, it's up the center and then down that sides. Being that I'm on the natural now, I can touch the product back and forth. I don't have to go one direction anymore. And then top-wise. So now I want to look at my arch. I like a thinner nail, and I can tell where my bulk isn't so much at the highest point where that is. My bulk is right here. And remember, I built that up because I had a buckle. So now I'm going to come in and I go this way. I don't need to continue going side to side and affecting the whole nail. I want to touch just a portion of the nail like this. So for my control, I'm tapered. So I'm only hitting one area of that nail. And let's see what that's done. And I would say just a little bit more. Here, let's look down the barrel. So here's when I talk to you guys about sending me pictures and stuff. These are the things that I'm looking for when people say, "Oh, well, I applied it and it's in the right place." I know. Well, I still have to visually see it because as I turn my nail, this one's not too bad. Oh, I can't show you. I look for having it high on one point versus the other. So, for instance, if I looked down the barrel of the nail, and this is the C curve. If I looked down the barrel and I saw that this portion right here was high, okay, and usually it's high about like that, okay. Or if they come in and they have a crack right here up the center or right here on the side, I look and I can usually see a high point right here on the nail. And that's from us not finish filing or applying the product correctly. And what happens is when that nail gets hit, the high point, the thicker part, is going to be able to hold up. And as soon as it starts going to thinner, that's its weakest point. So in this case, your thinnest point would be your free edge area, like right where the free edge is. And you usually see a little bit of a crack there and the crack here. It's because this area is too high. Okay. If you see lifting right here, okay, so let's say the client comes in and they have lifting on this side. We would, if it was their rider finger and it's lifted in there, it's the pressure of them holding their utensil, okay, or their pencil, fork, whatever it is that they do all day with it. With me, it's my e-file. And that extra pressure can create lifting right there. What happens though is the pressure on this side usually lifts the opposite side, okay? So if you have lifting here, it's either direct pressure that's happening there, or this side got hit and it bends that down, and your pressure that's going to release is going to be the opposite side. I hope that makes sense. I've seen lots of repairs and I can look at them and I can usually tell what happened to create that issue. If they have lifting, okay, so sometimes you'll see clients where they come in and this area, that won't work on there, this area is lifted on them, okay? It's down the side, but not the other side. And sometimes it's always the same clients for that. And it's like, why do they always lift on the other side? And so the pressure of that, say they are people who are picking up boxes or tubs all the time, and the pressure of when they do that hits this side of the nail and it pushes on that, and the pressure is on that side, and it's going to release on the opposite side. Sometimes it will just break that side of the corners as well if that's your weaker point. But if your nail all the way across the nail has a great ratio, it's going to usually pull up on the opposite side of that nail. Okay, so this one is finish filed. You can see that my C curve is even. My highest point, I still am kind of high here, depending on how I roll the nail, so I can tell that I have a high point right here, so I'm going to file that. And these, honestly, guys, are where you're getting so nitpicky. That's like us techs judging each other's techs. A client is not going to notice this, but us judging each other, that's exactly the little extra steps that you can do. Okay. So when they talk about thickness, they always say, depending on your length and stuff like that, that you want your thickness to be the size of a credit card. Okay. So I have not finish file this because I don't have to on the genre technique. It's already smooth. Finish file if you need to, but it saves about 15 minutes doing this technique because you don't have to do that. But you can see down the barrel. So these two are acrylic. This one's an acrylic fill, and then this one's a genre technique. And so to compare to a credit card, my stamping, okay, so you can see the thickness of my stamping scraper to the thickness of my nails. I don't even know that I can get that in the, here, let's go to the side. So you can see that I'm not thicker than the credit card. There, that angle might be the better angle. Okay, so they say that you want your fria to be the thickness of this. However, if you have a person with a very long nail and they have a higher apex and stuff like that, it's going to make it harder for you to taper all the way down to that. So this is just a rule of thumb. You do what's best for that client to hold on the nails. And if it makes a thicker nail, it makes a thicker nail. And if their nails never have any problems, then you know you're doing something right. If the nail's having issues, then yeah, you might want to look at maybe changing the thickness, changing where you're pointing your apex, maybe even changing products sometimes and stuff like that. So from here, I would apply a base coat to this one and continue on with color. And then this one is ready to go with something else. So I told you I would show you